Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Dauphin County Board of Commissioners voting session today is Thursday, January 19th, 2023. We'll start out with a roll call and let the record show that all 5 of the commissioners are here and present. And I'll ask everyone to please stand for a brief pledge and invocation. If you would bow your heads, please. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another day and for the many blessings of life. We ask for knowledge and wisdom to carry out the business of this county. Anything that we accomplish will give you the honor and glory. In Christ's name we do ask and pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do you have any announcements? Any announcements? We'll move on to the approval of the minutes. First up, we have the minutes of the work session held on December the 15th, 2022. Any additions or deletions? I guess I will say that being only 3 of us were here for that particular time, I think y'all will be abstaining in reference to those minutes. So, do I have a motion?
I wasn't here either.
Oh, you weren't here either, that's right.
I abstained.
That ain't gonna work.
Were you on the phone?
No.
Not that one.
So what do we need to do?
Well, that is a bit of the quagmire. Did you watch the meeting later?
Yes.
Could you verify that what you saw is in the minutes? Consistent with the minutes? So I think in that case, that's the best we can do. So I would say, Commissioner Gaines, please go ahead and vote based upon your review of the presentation.
I can do that.
So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the work session held on December 15th, 2022?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Dooley,
Second.
second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And those are approved 3-0. Next up, we have the minutes of the voting session held on December 15th, 2022. Any additions or deletions? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley. Second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And those are approved 3-0. Just for the general public that had maybe came in, wasn't here for our work session, we are working on our sound system, so none of our technology works yet. It's being newly installed, so that's the reason you see us go back to the old way of doing things tonight with hand votes and things like that. Just to keep you updated. All right. Next up, we have the approval of the agenda. I do have 7 changes to the agenda, and they'll all be under new business. First would be request to accept the 2023 Criminal Justice Coordinating Council K-9 grant that you heard tonight. Compensation of court bailiffs. FY 2023 Legacy Link contract addendum number 1. Tennis and pickleball court renovations. Request to submit application for local maintenance and improvement grant. And then we had several board appointments, Industrial Building Authority and Park and Recreation Board, which we'll go over later again. And lastly, Department of Public Health letter concerning funding request for the new health department. Do I have a motion with those changes?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines. Second by Commissioner Bruce. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And that is approved 4-0. No one signed up for public comment in this particular section.
No, sir.
We'll move on to our public hearing. We have one public hearing. It's amendment to the land use resolution. This is the second of 2 hearings. First hearing was held at the December 20th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. So, Ms. Sharon, if you would kind of give us the highlights before I open that hearing.
Need to acknowledge there are a few typos here, and word processing is not my jam, so to speak. So certainly any of that kind of publishing issues would be corrected prior to Unicode. As well, Unicode does put a clean up on the document. Multifamily remains in RMF zoning, CPCD zoning, and mixed-use village zoning. There is a necessary deletion on page 84. There was still a reference to open storage. When I started working on this document, we had not passed the property maintenance ordinance, so that is still in there and it needs to be deleted. It was listed as a prohibition in one of the zoning districts or special use, but that on page 84 would need to be deleted. Any reference to open storage just goes back to when we first started working on the draft and we didn't have the property maintenance ordinance. I had a cheat sheet sent out to you. It's still a lot to follow. A lot of the changes are almost sentence structure in nature, breaking out a lot of rules as far as accessory structures, and it went on in each district. Had to go in and clean it up. Couldn't exceed the height of the home. The home had to be built first, and just made sure that was in every land use. There's been some questions, and I'm going through the residential changes. I took a look at the units per acre in 3 or 4 of the land use districts, and the matrix includes fairly large lots. A half-acre lot in RS, a 1-acre lot in RS2, and something even larger. So the question is, do you want units per acre or large lots? The easier fix is large, wide lots. But if you wanted to grant a designer a little more flexibility, you'd go with the net. How many buildable acres do you have? And here go with the smaller lots. I don't want to call it conservation subdivision straight off the bat because you're not doing a whole lot of formulas. You're saying you get 1 unit per acre on the 80 acres that are buildable, and you only have to build a 10,000 square foot lot. So in my mind, it gave a little more flexibility. If it's caused that much, if it causes a lot of heartburn, it's certainly easier to just default to 1 acre, half-acre lots. That's the residential change. Again, multifamily remains in 3 of the districts. Access road, remove the reference to the width of the road and just default to the fire code. Added an enclosed garage on townhomes, increase the size of a townhome to 1,200 square feet. An elimination of the semi-detached product that we see so much of, since I'm really not sure what the history of that is or what it really is. It's basically a very small lot with a very small home. Clarify the height of accessory structures. There's some questions to why we have a lot of language about fowl and birds, so just try to clarify roosters are prohibited. Moved around some verbiage that should be up front and added a date to the residential agricultural corrected so that you know what date, if they granted a deed or after this date, added a qualifier to the land size and also in the residential agricultural that 2 acres is okay. If you're in RAC and you have 2 acres, you can have a separate building for a home occupation. Clarified in all the residential districts, the guest quarter rules. Reduce the minimum acreage necessary for a residential planned community from 100 to 60, and might open up some smaller properties that could rezone to that. Also increase the density. I didn't think there's much incentive for an open space design at only 1 unit per acre, so residential planned community went down to 60 and increased density to 1.5. And then threw in a minimum standard lot size, so you don't get anything smaller than 5,000 square feet, and added sidewalks on both sides of the road. Bed and breakfast, that's a cleanup. We adopted that in 2021. Stream buffer requirements just mirrored what Forsyth County has had on books since 2000, and certainly now we're seeing more development to the north of the county, which there are many trout streams up there. We have the Etowah River. More and more we're being pressured from the federal government for stormwater control, our tree protection and flood control. So that's probably the best management practice for stormwater. Addressing stormwater is a simple stream buffer setback. Added sawmills as a permitted use in RA, not sawmills, temporary portable sawmills. You may want to consider it removing the year, that you can only have them for a year. Certainly if you own that type of sawmill, you're not going to hurry up and want to do all your woodworking in 1 year. I think a big one that I added more from the tourism and to also maybe preserve some of the property that we have in RA is a campground as a special use in RA, which I didn't get any direction from the board on that. It's just something that always puzzled me why we have so many RV parks north of here and we have so many visitors to Amicalola and so much to offer here in this town. Clarified open space permitted uses, increase the side yard setbacks in RA, RAC, and RRE, and that's mainly after many conversations with Chief Bailey on minor plats, what we need to do to make it a little safer. Reduce the need for a special use for a manufactured home. If you have 3 acres, and it's a lot of record, we had, I want to say 5 last year, and a few the year before, they were all approved. And it is a special use. So if you own 3 acres and it's a lot of record in RA, you have to come before the board and ask to place another home on. So that was more not just, again, no board direction, but just looking at the paperwork involved and waiting in the housing market seemed feasible. Updated all the language on the non-conforming use. Removed the phrase grandfather. That's kind of old phrase for that. Capped the CRB structure or commercial structure in commercial rural business, not that we ever had an application for that category, at 5,000. However, increased the CCB to 7,500. So a small dollar store is 7,200 square feet. So you may have some need. And we already have some out there that are sitting in CCB, and it sounds large, but really it's dollar stores, not that large. Eliminate setback variances by staff. There's been some state legislation that's kind of removed the ability for staff variances, so I took the staff variances out of Chapter 10 as well as throughout the commercial. You really don't want staff, planning staff having issues with the fire staff because they're signed off on reduced setbacks, and increase the maximum height in CHB from 35 to 40 feet and property size to 2 acres. The same in CHI, increased the height to 40 feet, increased the rear yard setback basically so we can get the buffer, stormwater, and fire protection. In the CPCB, limited the single-family residential use to townhomes only. Remove the cap of 100 units. Also clarified how you can use open space. And no superstores or auto sales storage. Again, a superstore is great if it's up near the outlet mall, but it's a big traffic generator and you pull in a lot of people that are maybe traveling from out of town. Deleted the density bonuses. A lot of the design principles listed are pretty straightforward design that you would expect to see. Updated application, internal processes, added the sunset provision as requested by the Long Range Planning Committee. That's in there on page, deleted any reference to fees. Again, deleted staff variances. Increased acreage and CIR, added some screening. Again, there's a reference to outdoor storage material, but I need to delete that completely. That was covered in Chapter 44. Self-storage minimum performance, and they are very minimum, and solar buffers. Again, the stream buffer requirements duplicates, but also allows for some encroachment if it's associated with infrastructure. Clarified what I think were the most questions on towers with the balloon test and the third-party review. Under mixed-use village, added scientific and technical services, just to clarify if we have more users coming in, that is an encouraged use. Flex space up to 75,000 square feet. Certainly that's a number there could be discussion on trying to, I think the word village, you imagine kind of a core community, and at a certain point, a really large building may not be so village type. Reduce the acreage also to not discourage if somebody has a smaller piece of property and has a mixed-use village in mind, come to Dawson County. It is a typo to reduce the density from 2.8 to 2.5 because the 2.8 is in the comp plan. Not really sure we've been carrying that one through since the large project, but that needs to be more. Increase the height to 60 feet or 5 stories, so we want to go vertical, so we have that open space and stormwater. Again, clean up, increase the open space to 40%. If you recall on the really large project we had on 400, I think we had like 60% open space by the time we clustered everything. So 40% didn't seem too bad. Internal process updates, phasing of construction, that was a lot of discussion at that large project. General provisions, this is countywide. I deleted outdated minimums for parking. Basically, most franchises know their parking needs, and if it isn't a franchise, or if you think they're underparked, I can request a parking study. Added stacking for drive-throughs. We have a lot of issues with traffic regarding that. Added a loading space for a 5,000 square foot building. Added a size for a compact space. Minor edits to the concept plan amendments. Cleaned up the home-based business. It's okay if you're on 2 acres instead of 5. Under the district map, just a quick update. The GIS department maintains the future land use map. In the revocation of variances, I added may instead of shall. The code actually states that if you don't take action on the variance in a year, the county shall revoke it. But I put may because we would have to notify the applicant, of course. Cleaned up the withdrawal process so it's not expected that we would run an ad in the paper that something was going to be withdrawn. Guidelines for the amendment just updated. Application process for what we really do. And there are 2 powers listed for the VOC in some other chapters that weren't under their list of powers. Updated public notices again in 2021, 22. There was a House bill that changed some of the public notice rules, so we updated that and added definitions. And that's a lot. The Planning Commission only had one question, and that was regarding why you had to be an engineer to do a lighting plan. In this document, there's some highlighted yellow. And there's some other number perhaps next to it, like on townhomes 22 or 24. And the highlighted would have been my preference to allow for some flexibility in design, but would still get the 24 foot driveway. Because typically you think of a townhouse with a straight front, but you may have a porch or something, so you don't want to say all the homes have to be far back, but the driveway has to be, so you guys figure it out kind of thing. I know it's a lot. It's been a lot, and Lori looked at something even today. I found a few typos that were.
Questions for Sharon?
I don't have any at this point, but I may as other questions come forward.
Okay.
Thank you, man. All right. At this time, I'll open up this public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on the amendments to the land use resolution? Anyone here to speak on the amendments to the land use resolution? One at a time. Come on up, give us your name and your address, and then you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Corey Guthrie. I live at 3384 Elliott Family Parkway, Dawsonville, Georgia. In 2023, congrats, Commissioner Bruce, Commissioner Sowers. Welcome aboard. It's good to see you guys, and thank you for your time. I know you guys will do a great job. I had reviewed the land use update, the amendments, and I don't have a lot to talk about. I guess I know a lot of these changes are for the betterment of Dawson County. and I work with whatever's presented to me. I'm a civil engineer, and that's my job, and I have a lot to say about residential densities and requirements and whatnot. But there was a couple sections that I had a particular interest in. One was about the home occupation section, and basically it was kind of made aware when I read through it that I understood that home occupations in an accessory structure is really only allowed in RA zoning, more or less. And there's a lot of language taken out of other residential zonings. And I would love to see the board be more pro-business here in Dawson County and allow that home occupation as is allowed in RA in other zoning, residential zoning, maybe for lots that are 1 acre or larger, because we don't have a plethora of options for, say, white-collar jobs here in Dawson County. And I think that would take away from some opportunities that we have. And until I started a business, and I live in RA, so this really doesn't affect me personally, but I do see an opportunity for Dawson County to be more welcoming to small businesses. And some of them are in the previous or the current land use, such as architects, brokers, counselors, clergy, and so on. That's in the current one. And I guess I can understand some hesitancy to allow some of these in residential zones because it's more of a commercial use. But gosh, we live in 2023, and with better internet options moving into Dawson County finally, I think we can be more part of a greater community, not just in Dawson County, but we can reach more folks. So I just basically would love to see a chance to extend that to more folks, to allow them an opportunity to operate a business at their residence. The other one is I guess a big change that will affect a lot of folks, good and bad, are the increased buffers, the doubling of the buffers to 50 feet, and then the additional 25-foot impervious setback. That is consistent with Metro Atlanta and a lot of municipalities around Georgia. Its obvious intent is to preserve our water system.
That's your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak on the amendments to the land use resolution? Come on up. Give us your name and your address, and then you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Michael Turner. I reside at 1090 Oak Haven Drive, Roswell, Georgia. I'm here representing a significant amount of acreage in Dawson County as a landowner in the Turner family group and their land holdings, which represent thousands of acres here. We pay a lot of taxes. And, this is a lot of regulations, okay? And there's already a lot of land here that's platted and divided up, and you're adding regulations on those existing areas, and it becomes even more difficult to try to sell those or utilize those. I had my engineer go through and analyze this. I'm not going to talk about the nuts and bolts and parts and pieces because I only got 3 minutes, so I won't do that. But I certainly would like to plug in with someone, and I'll even have my engineer come. Certainly Corey is excellent at understanding the parts and pieces about the buffers, this constrained land, the impact that's going to have. And basically, you're taking our property by not allowing us to even use it in the density calculations. We can't build in it already. So let's march downstairs to the Board of Assessors and let's just take it out of the tax base. And let's quit paying taxes on it since we can't use it. Now, I had my engineer overlay this over an existing subdivision we just finished, Oakdale. 15-acre piece of property right here in Dawson County. And We started with 46 homes on it. We ended up with 37 because a stream was discovered that hadn't existed there in 20 years. But with these standards, that subdivision couldn't happen. Dawson County is collecting $2,500 a year on that property in 2020. This past year, because of our 37 home development on that piece of property, Dawson County collected $99,900 in taxes. These kind of regulations kill housing. These kind of regulations cause the value of the property to go down, because as a developer, as the property owner, I'm compensated based on what I can do on density and utilization of the property. And this kills those kind of developments. Additionally, you expand the buffers, you take property away that can't be used. You expand the widths of the lots. It's okay to have the property in the development, but you widen the lot. And I know you young folks are environmentally conscious, but if you talk about the carbon footprint, why do we add another 25 or 50 feet of street, sewer line, water line in the subdivision that doesn't have to be there because we've got some artificially constrained density requirement? Allow us to get closer together because the homeowners want that.
That's your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your efforts.
Anyone else here to speak on the amendments to the land use resolution? Come on up. Give us your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Warren Welch. I live at 278 Patton Drive in Dawsonville. I wasn't expecting 3 minutes, so I apologize if I ramble a little bit or try to speed up. I think that a lot of the changes are great, but there's a couple of things that I do have questions or comments about. The constrained land in particular, and going to the net acreage. Mr. Turner hit on a lot of it already, but it's a big overstep of property rights, and it's really to me, it's kind of draw the line of a slippery slope of property rights here in this county. The families that have built this county, and I'm not one of them, I'm a movement, and I'm proud to have chosen this as my home, but the families that built this county are getting bled dry, and it's wrong. Plain and simple. I don't think that was the intent of this. I truly don't. But we got to take a really, really hard look at it because I think it's extremely important. To Mike's point, are we getting tax cuts on the land that is unusable? My personal property has tons of slopes, tons of creeks. It's why we bought it. We love it. But if I can't use it in the future, you're eroding my value. Okay? As a private taxpaying citizen, it concerns me with our litigation costs. I don't want to bear the burden of attorney bills. It's not fair. I don't want my kids to. This is a huge, huge, very serious thing. And again, I think the majority of it was done really, really well. But that may not have been features really, really concerning. And then personally, I'll lighten up. Let's talk about roosters for a moment. All right, we've got chickens. We have roosters. We have hens. We have roosters. Roosters protect the hens. I've got 33 acres. All right. I don't think it's fair that I shouldn't be able to have roosters on my property. RSRMM. Maybe there needs to be an acreage limit. Maybe there needs to be something. But I can tell you, if somebody shows up on our property to take our roosters, my little girl's going to cry. I'm going to beat him. And I think the intent there is good too. There just has to be some clarity. And then lastly, just the real estate professional in the community, I think Sharon is at 30 foot for the townhomes minimum?
25.
25 foot width?
Yes.
Okay. So we typically see 24 and 28 foot or so. I think, in that 24 range would be advisable. And then lastly, I would just say the lot widths that are being pushed for, a lot of buyers don't want big lots. They just don't, plain and simple. Your young people with busy families, your older active adults, they want to be on the road, they want to be going to go. I certainly think concentrating on density is important. Responsible growth is important. But we're getting into overregulation if we're not real careful with saying you can do this, you're going to lose this land, but you got to have lots this width. We are blessed with topography in Dawson County. It doesn't always work the way it does.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on the amendments to the land use resolution? Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing. Are you going? Come on.
I still wasn't gonna say that. But Mark Bird, 5040 Highway 53 East.
Uh-huh.
Corey, you know. But good to have y'all. I just think we need to study this a little more. I know y'all have studied it. You've got 2 new members, and us out here as landowners, I ain't had time to study that. I mean, it's a Bible. It's a thick Bible. Anyway, that's the only thing I'd like for us to do. Have a little time to maybe have group sessions with business owners or something. I mean, there are a lot of this that's good. Don't get me wrong. But what I've looked at, but there's some of it that we need to tweak. And that's Mark Bird. I'll let it go. Thank y'all. New commissioners.
Thank you.
All the commissioners. Chris, keep them straight.
Anyone else here to speak on the amendment to the land use resolution? Anyone else? Last chance. Seeing none, I'll close that hearing. Now, you have.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate the people that come out and actually speak. I've had a lot of phone calls about this specific thing, because Mark's right, it's huge. And I have not had a chance to go. I've kind of hit the highlights, but it's a lot of information to go through. Whether new commissioner, old commissioner, it doesn't matter. It's a lot of stuff to look over and to understand, and I don't even understand half the acronyms. So I will say that as far as I'm concerned, I will take the time to for sure look it over in more depth. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to any of us. But it's a lot of information. I just appreciate y'all that actually come and talk, and so that we can understand, your concerns and your issues with it. That's all for me.
I've got a clarification, more of a definition question in regards to, there's some ambiguity we want to understand in how we define streams, and if we're doing like a 75-foot stream, and it seems like the state and the federal definition could include even a what do you call it, a wet weather creek or a dry bed that, if it rains 20 inches and you're going to get water in it, so that could be a stream. So some of those definitions we might need to go back and kind of make sure that we're a little bit tighter in the way because I agree. Somebody said, we got the trout stream. Obviously, that's a critical component. Mm-hmm. However, if we're on 400 and we have a dry creek bed, then going to the 75 could be very much more limiting, I think, and maybe not intentional if we don't narrow that down.
Yeah, we rely on the surveyor and the environmental lot grading plan. We could go and dig into blue line maps and all that type of stuff, but we truly rely on the professionals and all of the local surveyors that we deal with immediately point out the creek. We do have some issues in confirming whether it's a trout creek or not, and we even have an interactive trout creek map online. It's amazing how many of those creeks are trout designated. The concern has been when you miss a creek that needs extra protection, the homeowner runs into a lot of issues. And of course they look to us because if we missed it or somebody missed it in their design, they get in a lot of trouble. They need 404 permits, they need a lot of expensive plans and that type of thing. So it isn't just, we think it's a good idea, it's also to protect homeowners, not business owners. They know that they can pipe and how to get and how to work around that. It's the residential folks and maybe not the big builders. But again, we don't walk the property and say that's a creek or that's not a creek. The environmental folks tell us. Or the surveyors, or the engineers.
The way this is written, if they define a stream as a dry, 1 foot wide little trickle as a stream or as a creek or stream, then it would be applicable for the 75 feet on that as the same it is for Edward River. Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what Alexis said, and I will say staff has put a tremendous amount of time into going through this thing, and even just correcting misspellings and ambiguities. It's taken a lot of work, and it's a heavy lift. I've sat down one-on-one with you to go through it a couple times, and there's still certain things that, as we get feedback from the community, it's important for us to take that into consideration. And anybody, I'll say, that didn't get all their points across, if you'll just shoot us an email with your bullet points, then we can continue to drill down, because it is a large document, and even going through it, sometimes we don't pick up on everything, where your perspective might pick up on that. So I would welcome anybody just to shoot us. Everybody's got our email addresses. Shoot us an email with some of your bullet points, very specific of what you're looking at, concerned about, and let's drill down on it and make sure. Hopefully it's a long-term document, whatever it comes out to be, and it solidifies so everybody, land use owners, can make plans on their future, on what they want to do with it, and so that.
And certainly variances, not at the staff level, but variances are always an option for projects. But certainly, I don't want to say it was a push, but as you well know, we had a moratorium in place, and I didn't want it to fall back.
Sure.
We didn't get this accomplished or over the finish line, and we're still holding a residential moratorium for that project.
I think the people that would be against a moratorium are probably the landowners in the room. They'd rather get this done right.
Yes.
If it takes us an extra 30 days, I think they'd be more willing for us to take the time to get it right.
And truly, the goal was stormwater design flexibility, because getting rid of a larger lot, actually, like I said, provides a little more flexibility. Sure, you may do this more in the stream buffer or the open space, but if you don't have to do a half-acre lot, you're going to get flexibility. Of course, I don't know how often we're going to see a R1 or RS2 zoning application like that would happen again.
Okay.
Other questions for Sherry? I would say, and I would recommend to the board, that this is such a large document, we table it and get some more feedback from obviously our citizens, as well as an opportunity for you to go through it again. And I can say that I've read it 3 times, and each time I find something different that I have a question about. So my recommendation to the board would be that we table it. You have other options, obviously. You could vote to approve it, or you can vote to deny it, or you can vote to table it. Those are kind of the options you currently have. So, unless you have any other questions, what's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we table, what are we calling this thing?
Amendments to the land use resolution.
Yeah. Amendments to the land use resolution. I think 30 days is probably more reasonable to gather feedback from folks, and for us to be able to go in and massage what we need to, staff level, to give you guys enough time as well. What would that date be, Kristen?
You could do your February 16th meeting, or if you wanted to push it out more, March 2nd.
16th would be less than, I'd say the March date would be better, for just to make sure, again, we get it right.
And where are we at? Legal? Where are we at on our moratorium?
Yeah, we're going to have to change that.
You know what? I didn't bring that date with me. Do you know right off, Sharon? But I think we may need to push that.
It's the next meeting.
Yeah, I was thinking that the moratorium was over the second, February 2nd.
February 2nd.
That's right. So I think that was Sharon's point. It was pushed to get it
Yeah.
here with
Yeah.
the option for y'all to approve it before the next meeting. So,
Does that need to be part of the motion for this? As we table this, that we extend
We could do that.
at the February 2nd
we
meeting?
can, so
Yeah.
you think it goes through February 2nd?
I'm
I
almost
think it
positive.
does.
I'm almost
In
positive.
fact,
it
I
does.
think we may have said February 3rd.
Yeah, we
Yes.
did.
Yes, I think we could deal with it in the next meeting, and if we can get an advertisement done in time so we can go ahead and push
Okay.
it, we'll do that as well. So I'll I'll get with Sharon
Oh, get the moratorium advertisement, okay.
to extend it out, since it's been extended a couple of times.
Okay, yeah.
Do it tomorrow. Yeah, Chris and Sharon, I'll coordinate.
Okay. So that's my motion.
All right, so we have a motion to table until March 2nd. That was made by Commissioner Gaines. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stowers. Discussion.
I just say that I agree that it's going to, it's like y'all said earlier, that the more perspective that we have that look at this document, it lets us fine tune it and fix it. Because when you read it, I've got a different perspective than you have, and then you have a different perspective than the next person sitting beside you. And I think that helps us get a document that we can all live with and accomplish the goals that we're looking to do. So that's why I'm fine with spending the time that we need on it to get it right, because it's this big of an update has not been done in a long time, and it needs to be done, but it needs to be done correctly. So,
Any other discussion?
One thing I jotted down is stacking for drive-thrus. Is that aimed at Chick-fil-A? Just curious.
Too late.
That's one I know. It's stacking around the roundabout.
Any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second to table to March 3rd, March 2nd. Hearing no other discussion, all in favor, let it be known by raising your right hand. And that is approved 4-0, so it's tabled to March 2nd.
Please give us your feedback. Email us your feedback.
Yeah. We'll move on to zoning, and I will read the rules that we will use in reference to this zoning application. The planning director will present the application and recommendation of the planning commission. Then we'll hear from the applicant. Then I'll open the hearing. We'll hear from those who are in favor of the application. We'll hear from those who are opposed to the application. Each person wishing to speak will be allotted 3 minutes per our zoning guidelines. Anyone who speaks will need to sign in to give us your name and address. Also, if anyone has donated $250 or more to any candidate, you will need to fill out a form stating so. So this zoning is ZA 22-28. Daniel Vargas Hernandez requests to rezone tax map parcel 095146 from CHB, Commercial Highway Business, to CHI, Commercial Highway Intensive, for the purpose of moving his landscape and roll-off dumpster business. Ms. Sharon.
Yes, thank you. A fairly unique case when it came in, of course, the staff met with the applicant, and from a single-dimensional review, dealing with the applicant, it had county commercial zoning, it was running 53, took in the application and we started working on it, and come to find out there are stipulations that went with the old zoning that the applicant did not have access to. Additionally, the GIS map will show the parcel, but it's not been updated for the taper lane coming off of 53 and the property that the state purchased. So he doesn't have access to 53, and in working with Public Works, they can't move the driveway down as he proposes in his application. So as an applicant, he did everything right, but then this popped up that basically the zoning was for an antique shop. The home is to look residential in design. And then there was also a sunset clause, number 4, that if it wasn't constructed in 2 years, it doesn't say the zoning is revoked, it just says we're not amending the classification for speculative purposes. So for whatever reason, the parcel kept its zoning, but it has these stipulations. So at the Planning Commission, there were some neighbors, because it has grown into a nice residential area. Clifton Drive, you climb the hill and you go back, and there's a lot of remodeling and a lot of construction going on, residentially speaking. So the Planning Commission recommended denial, and our recommendation, if we made a recommendation, would be denial, but we can't support it. It's just not a good use in my location.
Questions for Ms. Sharon? Now, the future land use map has it as residential as well.
Correct.
Surrounded.
It is.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you, ma'am. We may have some more later. Is the applicant present? Come on up, sir. Tell us what you would like to do.
My name is David Nephew. I'm speaking on behalf of Daniel. Quite honestly, we were shellacked in the meeting that we came to, not having all the information in front of us. We wrote a check for $3,500 to Dawson County in good faith that, based on the recommendations of the people that were guiding us, that this would be something that would be a relatively non-consequential deal. In lieu of what we understand, and taking into account the concerns of the community, we just like to see if we could just get our $3,500 back and just say, we understand.
Okay, well, if it's on the agenda, we'll have to proceed with the hearing, but something the board can discuss. Okay. Any questions of the applicant?
When you bought the land, was there any due diligence done to understand what was the constraints behind the land?
Well, we didn't. We were not given any clarification of constraints. We bought the land knowing that it was commercial land. We talked to the county. The county said you'll have to take it before the board to transfer the commercial from one commercial to another. We didn't have any of this documentation that says in 1986 that there was a stipulation added to that. That was never given to us. We were never given privy to that until I walked into the meeting and was just blindsided. So we bought the land in good faith, and then came to the county and said, "Hey, what do you recommend? How should we go about this?" And they led us along the process, and I think everybody did it in good faith, not knowing until we got to the meeting that we had no idea that this document even existed.
Where was this document pulled from, Sharon?
The zoning for this property from 1986.
No, correct, but if he came and asked and it was recommended that it would have to be from commercial to commercial and you pay the $3,500 to come in front of the board and the whole process, why wasn't that pulled until, why wasn't that given to him?
When somebody makes the application, that triggers the research.
Okay.
And typically, we don't find something like this. I mean, this is very unique.
Okay.
We might find something that says, 30-inch bushes need to be planted, or if this, or if that, or something unique for, the 90s or 2015.
Was it given to the planning commission before the meeting?
It was part of their packet.
Okay, but it wasn't given to them.
No, and typically staff emails the full packet out to the applicant. So I don't know what happened to the email.
It'll be online too. We put them online.
The staff report is online.
I mean, the agenda packet's online.
Yeah.
Well, I just think for $3,500, you should receive an email stating and not be
Yeah, and
blindsided.
what I plan on doing in 2023 is just go ahead and collect a few more dollars to record the stipulations with the approval.
Sure.
And have it recorded in public records.
That way, when they go to look at land, they'll find it.
Yes.
Okay, and so the digging won't have to happen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, because, you have file, you have scanning, there's just so much that can happen. There's stuff sometimes.
I mean, we're talking about a sunset clause now, and if you
Yeah.
document that somewhere, then that's.
Correct.
Yeah, this is definitely sunset, and then we count the minutes in a separate binder in the archive binder where the chairman.
My understanding of the reading, it's been taxed as residential, even though it was zoned as commercial.
Right.
So somebody's been paying residential taxes on it for all this time versus.
And it would make a great residential lot.
So is the wish to take it back to residential zoning? Because I mean, if you still own it and it's commercial, now that it's kind of bubbled up, it's going to be taxed as commercial, I would say.
I doubt if it's gone that long, but I mean, I think we should, just as a courtesy, downzone it to match the rest of the neighborhood. And
If that's the applicant wants to
build
do.
on it or sell it for residential. There's strong need for residential. That's big enough, maybe.
I mean, you don't have to make that decision now.
It maybe could be split even, they maybe do one flat. I don't know what kind of central laws. So.
Okay. Well, I guess that decision's not before us. It's just.
Yeah, it's just, we've been kind of struggling with it, because I'm worried how many of those could be figured out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so this time I'll open this hearing. Is anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? Come on up. Give us your name, your address, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Stephen Macro, 285.
Sign in.
You know, I came here with a lot to say about having them move in with a business and stuff, and it sounds like there's a misunderstanding along the way with his application and his stuff. I hate to hear it for him. I hope that it gets resolved. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad that there isn't going to be something that massive, because anything bigger than an F-250 on that road is ridiculous. Our school bus can't even get down it. We have to take our kids and sit at the end of the road with them until the bus comes. And that's really all I have to say on that matter. Like I said, I had a whole spiel and everything. But, it seems like there was a little bit if he does choose to, keep the property and move in we'll be more than happy to take him as a neighbor, But in all reality, anybody who has been anywhere near that area knows that that's just not the spot for that kind of traffic, In a few years, we're probably going to be back here discussing what we can do to fix that, But for the most part, I just hope it all gets resolved at this point.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application? Come on up, give us your name and your address. Please sign in, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is David Stewart. I live at the end of Clifton Drive, property owner there. Is that supposed to sign this?
Yes, please.
I'm opposed to it just because I really don't want the traffic. It's commercial traffic, roll-off trucks. It's hard enough to get that road paved. And we all know it's hard to get it paved in Dawson County, but we did it, and I'd like to keep it a paved road. It's a road to our homes, and I would just like to keep it that way. No business like that. And also, I do remember the zoning. I know y'all were talking about this now, but I was going to bring that up. That was one of my main talking points. That zoning that Jolene Cox, they put an amendment in that when that land sold, it reverted back to the zoning that we had before. Residential 2A. But I'd like to see it go back to that. I'd like to just do away with the whole commercial business right there in that property. That property was not suitable for business there. Like they're talking about the roads, Highway 53 it's getting ridiculous. You definitely can't already take a left turn out there safely. And the right's bad enough, but they did fix the turning lane part. That helped out some, but it didn't help out slowing people down trying to turn off that highway. But that's why I'm opposed to that business there. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application? Come on up, give us your name and your address. Please sign in, and you will have 3 minutes.
My name is Sarah Stewart. I live at 482.
You sign in for me, okay?
I live at 482 Clifton Drive. And I am opposed to it because we don't need the traffic on that road. And like they have said, you can't even get out of there once you get to the stop sign to go left or right. You're going to sit there forever, and it's too fast. Too fast on use hours. And I want to make it residential. I mean, to put a business there, it would be really dangerous. Too much traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone else? Come on up. Give us your name and your address. Please sign in, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Suzanne Peters, and we have property on Clifton Drive, and there is 17 residents on Clifton Drive, with the possibility of 3 more being added at the end of the cul-de-sac. There's just no more room for a business to be on the corner of 53 Hugh Stowers and Clifton Drive. It's a nightmare right now. They come off 53 on the Hugh Stowers like it's an exit ramp. It's terrible to try and get out on Hugh Stowers, and I believe they're using Hugh Stowers now to eliminate a lot of the traffic on 53. So we built our retirement home there. We've been there for over 20 years, about 22 years, and it's just a nightmare. It's a worse place to put any type of business. It's a residential area, and there's, like I said, 17 residents that live serviced by that street or that road. It's called a drive. I don't know what you name it, but that's pretty much my comment. There just is no room for a business up that way.
Thank you.
It's way past my bedtime, so I kept it short and sweet.
My name is Art Peters. I'm her husband, and I live at 270 Clifton Drive. My main concern is the traffic on that intersection. I mentioned the last time I was here that I was a victim of that 20 years ago, and it ain't got any better. In fact, it got worse. Secondly, the only thing this is going to really do to that is run down the properties, devalue the properties that's already on there. People spend a lot of money and time in their yards on that street to keep it up nice looking. This is not going to help it. So I'm very much opposed to commercial business of any kind on that corner. And I would welcome a single family residence. That would help our community very much. It's a quiet street and we want to keep it that way. And I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close the hearing. So, question for council. So it appears as, and we can verify this, what the applicant stated, that they would be willing to withdraw their application. Is that correct? And the board does have the authority to refund their money if they so desire to do that. So with that, I think you've got several options. You could allow a withdrawal of the application. You could decide whether you're going to refund the application fee. You could vote to approve, or you could vote to deny the application.
The one thing I might note that if it is denied, there's a waiting period to bring the property back for rezoning. So if there's a willingness to withdraw, that might be a more appropriate resolution. And then we could consider what other use might go on that land that would fit within the comprehensive land use plan.
So with that, what's the pleasure of the board?
Would it be more appropriate for them to amend the application to rezone it to RA or to RSR instead of that? Because my understanding is if it's commercial now, they're going to start getting billed at a commercial rate from a tax perspective. And they've gotten away with, not them because they just bought it, but whoever's owned that has been paying residential taxes on a commercial parcel.
I'm not sure if the tax office taxes based on zoning or on the actual land use on the property. Zoning doesn't always trigger the tax office to go out. It's typically what the structure is used for.
I have a quick question too. You mentioned rezone or withdrawing, and then there's a waiting period if we deny it. So if he withdraws, the applicant withdraws, and we refund the $3,500, and they decided to go and try to rezone it or do whatever themselves, taxes or not, just whatever, they can do that. There's no waiting period because they withdrew?
If they withdrew, that's correct.
Okay.
And the other, consideration here is based upon the historical zoning, it appears that, it was a residentially zoned property that was zoned commercial with a sunset and with a single limited use. And it appears that development did not occur within the time period, nor was the individual limited use ever consummated. And so really that should have reverted. Now, y'all know, some of you have heard me say this before, my position always is that you need a public hearing to rezone a reversion. But I think you could consider county-initiated rezoning to get the property to where it should be based upon that historical approval. Frankly, I think you could downzone it tonight if you so chose. Because I am always concerned about that when you've got an application for something, if you were to upzone it. But I think everything you've heard tonight is the citizen input, public input, historical input, and then the land use plan supports your residential zoning. If you wish to downzone it tonight, I think you could. My only concern about that is that it's not been fully vetted by staff in case there's any need for any conditions or anything else, So if you have an inkling to do that, you could even consider postponing tonight and then further explore options without commencing a new process.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask the applicant if they would like to have it?
Come on back up.
Right.
Yes.
What is y'all's preference on this property? I know you said you wanted the $3,500 back. Are y'all ultimately seeking to have it rezoned as residential? Now, is that something that y'all would start over and seek to get it right, and we could maybe go ahead and expedite that process for you?
Absolutely. At this point, we just, honestly, we would withdraw.
Okay.
Maintain possession of the property, we would probably sell it at a later date in time, but we're not interested in rezoning anything at this time. We bought the property under the pretense that it was already commercial, and we were just some kind of upgrade. I think it's what we understood. And we're just working class guys. We're not attorneys. We don't do this on a regular basis. All in good faith. And again, I don't think the county did this in a shady way. I walked into a meeting where I'd already talked to property owners, and it was my understanding with conversations with property owners that I spoke with that he's like, I I would never stand between a man and his business. And I thought it was just great. We go through this process and then we come see you guys and you guys make a vote on it. So we're 90 days into a process on that. And so now I find myself here, but the last meeting I went to was totally blindsided. I didn't even understand, wow, we got a document here that says that this zoning is fictitious in that it has stipulations applied to it. So at this juncture, Commissioner, we were just talking.
So y'all would prefer to withdraw and then revisit if y'all needed to rezone for residential at a later date, just when y'all have time to regroup. Okay.
Is there, Warren Welch might be able to answer this for me, is there any legal requirements in a real estate transaction that this stuff gets disclosed to the property buyer?
Certainly not a term, but.
Oh yeah, use that clause.
I don't know who the seller was or what their knowledge was.
Yeah.
It all depends on how they presented it to them. If they made certain claims that were known not to be true that they didn't tell them, that can be a fraudulent issue. But I certainly have no idea.
Yeah,
That would have to be proven that they have knowledge of that.
I think I understand obviously that it doesn't work there, and y'all bought it on the idea that it did work. My only concern, and I get your plight of having to pay the $3,500. The other side of that is staff has time invested in doing it, and my concern is, do we set a precedence where if somebody doesn't get what they think they want to get, then we should automatically return their money? And I don't know the answer to that, if it's ever happened in this manner. This is somewhat unique, obviously, so maybe it doesn't set a precedence.
We have returned application fees before.
And I think for me, the biggest thing is it's not for lack of you don't get what you want, so you want your feedback. It's you weren't given the correct information going in and you were blindsided.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that's blamed on your staff, but you were blindsided and didn't have the information going into it, or you may have withdrawn before. So I'm kind of like, staff is vested, but he's also vested, and that's kind of my. Now I think the biggest thing is I guess my opinion is give the money back and move on, and we'll readdress the rezoning when we can.
Have we refunded them before, or does this set a legal precedence or anything?
Well, I think I would agree with Commissioner Bruce that this is incredibly unique, that even staff, nobody knew, and even our land use map is reflecting it as an improper zoning. And had that information been known and available prior to the research being done, and I don't think for a second that staff blindsided. I think unfortunately your seller.
So, well, I don't even blame the seller, and I don't mean to step on you, but I think this document was. We are a growing community, and 40 years ago, this document was filed. And as a growing community, this building wasn't here 40 years ago. So that means that somebody moved files from one place to another, and in that shuffle, this document got turned over somewhere. And so nobody was really privy to it, and it's not really anybody's fault. It just, we didn't know it until we got it.
But I think that's a unique situation, Commissioner Gaines. I'm not concerned about that setting a precedent, because I think you're right. It would not be the purpose, and I think we would want to be clear that rezoning applicants who come forward and don't get or see the writing on the wall that they're going to get denied, that's not a refund opportunity. They go through the process and they get the decision that the board renders. But I do think this could be viewed as distinct and unique. Hopefully, it's very unique.
It is unique. Now,
it won't happen
we
again.
would still not be supportive of the use, even probably without that, just based on the roadway and the hill and the intensity of the use.
I don't think that.
Well, now with it being a well-known fact, if he sells it to somebody else, he's going to have to disclose that information.
That's right.
So shouldn't nobody come back wanting a commercial designation?
Well, and if I might say that I do think, and we could let the dust settle tonight and regroup with staff and with the owner, but it seems like there's a lack of clarity as to what the property can be used for and what it's zoned as based upon the zoning map versus this historical documents. And so whether it takes the county initiated rezoning to be clear it up back to that residential, I don't think to do that, I don't think you need to come forward with a new application, but I think we need to determine what needs to be done. I'm not sure that the property is clearly identified as the zoning that it is, and so we might need to do some type of remedial action to get that cleaned up. But I think that could be a second tier action on your part after tonight.
Any further questions of the applicant? What is the pleasure of the board? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we allow the applicant to withdraw and refund the $3,500 and direct staff to look into it with the applicant to see what this property needs to be zoned residential wise to get all to get everything corrected.
I second that.
Motion from Commissioner Dooley, seconded by Commissioner Bruce. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, let it know by raising your right hand. And that is approved 4-0.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Chairman, if Ms. Farrell will send us a check request
Yeah.
to finance, we cut checks on Thursday, so
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
have your check for you on Thursday.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on into the new business. First up, we have ratification of emergency purchase of main breaker at the jail. If you remember, you received information, some of us received information in reference to main breaker break problem at the jail. The ratification, so that final cost wound up being $43,150. And I guess we need to ratify that as well as that make in the motion that money would come out of fund balance. Okay. Any other information needed? That's probably going to have to be the three of us.
What was that amount?
$43,150.
Ready?
All right.
I make a motion that we ratify for the emergency purchase of a main breaker at the jail to come out of fund balance in the amount of $43,150.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
second by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising the right hand. And that's approved 3-0. Our second ratification is a letter that we sent. I don't know if we sent this after the first of the year or
I think they sent it before, right?
before the first of the year.
So many letters. Hold on. Yeah.
I
I think this
before
one
the
was
first
sent
of the year.
before.
All right, so this was in reference to a request for authorization for me to sign a letter to be sent to the Georgia Department of Transportation requesting additional $561,817 in local maintenance and improvement grant funds, and that was for the roundabout.
January 6th.
January 6th, so you're in. All right, so you can vote. All right, so is there any other information needed? Motion.
I want to make a motion to pass this as is, to send the letter, but I want to make sure that we clarify who's maintaining the roundabouts and the striping, the roundabout.
So this is just in reference to the money.
Oh, just
in
the
reference to getting the extra $500,000.
Okay, well then I will make a motion to send a letter and hopefully get that money.
We already did the letter. This is a ratification. We just want to ratify the letter we already
Yes,
sent.
okay, that's what I want to do.
All right, okay. Just got to get it right for the rest. All right, so I have a motion from Commissioner Bruce to approve the ratification of the request to send the letter. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stivers. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. That's approved 4-0. All right, move on. Next we have request to accept 2023 Criminal Justice Coordinating Council K-9 grant. That's in the amount of $112,204 for our K-9 group. That's a grant that we get annually, and there's no match. Any other information needed? Motion.
Motion we approve the canine grant.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Bruce. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. That's approved 4-0. Next, we have compensation of court bailiffs. It was brought to you tonight. That was raising their daily rate from $85 to $100, and that would be funded through ARPA funds for this year, and they would apply for those same funds next year, and that was somewhere in the $5,000 to $6,000 amount when and if that would come back to the board. Any other information needed? Motion.
Come on, Seth.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself.
I just recuse myself on that.
Anybody else?
Okay.
What a bad influence, alright.
Already told him in the work session. See how short my memory is?
I'll make a motion to pass it, as is.
All right.
Trying to see if you can follow.
Motion by Commissioner Bruce.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dewey. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And that is approved. 3 with 1 abstention. All right, next up, we have FY 2023 Legacy Link Contract Addendum number 1. This was an additional $37,236 that we would receive. You heard what that would be used for earlier. Any other information needed? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley. Seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. That's approved 4-0. Next up, we have the tennis and pickleball court renovations. That was $98,000 maximum to come out of the remaining Splosh 6 funding. Any other information needed? Motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines.
A second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bruce. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And that is approved 4-0. Next up, we have request to submit application for local maintenance and improvement grant, LMIG funding for FY 2023 to the Georgia Department of Transportation. That's $440,877.78 from the state and $132,263.33 county match. And you saw the listing of the roads that were associated with that as well. Any other information needed? Motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Stowers.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And that is approved 4-0. Next up, we have board appointments. It's all right with the board, we'll take all of these at the same time. We have the Industrial Building Authority, Tony Passarella replacing Sherry Weeks, term January 2023 through December 2026. Carol Turner replacing Calvin Bird, term January 2023 through December 2025. Park and Recreation Board, Aubrey Good replacing Spencer Wright, term January 2023 through December 2027. Tim Goodyear replacing Heather Tierney, term January 2023 through December 2027. Whitney Gray Bennett replacing Chris Conowall, term January 2023 through December 2027. And Calvin Bird replacing Tony Keller, term January 2023 through December 2027. Any other information needed? Motion.
Make a motion to approve the board appointments as presented.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stowers. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And that is approved 4-0. Next up, we have Department of Public Health letter concerning funding requests for the new health department. You saw that letter tonight on request from our state representative Will Wade and our state senator Steve Gooch. Request for $1.5 million be sent to the letter sent to the Department of Public Health and Ms. Toomey. So any other information needed? Motion.
Motion to approve to send the letter to the request for the $1.5 million for the health department.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bruce. Discussion.
When, did he say when we might be notified of that?
He didn't. No, but you got to get it in now while they're playing with the budget.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was a timeline.
Yeah, he didn't say. Any other discussion? Hearing none, please vote by raising of hands. And that is approved 4-0. All right, so no one signed up for public comment in this section.
No, sir.
We do have a need for executive session to discuss personnel and land. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
second by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion? Hearing none, please vote by raising your right hand. And that is approved 4-0 to go into executive session. There will be no vote. We'll take about a 5-minute break and we'll meet in the back for executive session. And I want to thank everybody for your attendance. With that, we are adjourned.